This workshop focuses on preparing you to serve as the treasurer of your PTA, developing your leadership skills, and providing information about the many resources available to you. Many of the duties of the PTA treasurer can be found in your PTA bylaws. We will go into each of these in more detail as we move through the presentation. The treasurer also has additional duties that are executive board member duties in the bylaws or are outlined in the Treasurer Resource Guide. A treasurer should prepare a plan of work. An example can be found in the Treasurer Resource Guide. Ensure all cash funds are counted by at least 2 individuals. Your standing rules may require 3, so double-check them to be sure how many counters your PTA requires. Make sure all counters sign the deposit form. Make timely deposits to the PTA bank account. If the treasurer has not received requests for payments to be sent to Texas PTA for dues, he or she should contact the membership chair or VP for a roster and PTA funds request form and verify that the state and national dues escrow or liability account balances are correct. Dues can be submitted digitally or through the mail to Texas PTA and should be done at least monthly. Make disbursements per the budget, as adopted by the membership, and verify that a funds request form and necessary documentation accompany each transaction. Reconcile account statements monthly as soon as received. In addition to presenting the proposed budget, which was already mentioned, the treasurer then presents any amendments for approval by the membership as needed throughout the year. Guide executive board members on effective financial strategies for the PTA. You've seen the responsibilities you have as a treasurer, but now let's highlight the things you'll need to do to get the year started off as the treasurer. If you haven't already, register as the treasurer of your PTA. This helps your PTA get into good standing with the Texas PTA and ensures you receive important updates and reminders from the Texas PTA. Meet with the outgoing treasurer to review your responsibilities and become familiar with the PTA's financial practices. Some important things to ask include: does the PTA have a sales tax permit? If so, does the PTA file sales and use tax returns quarterly or annually? Does the PTA have sales tax to remit from this past year? Which IRS Form 990 did our PTA file? Are there any outstanding or recurring bills? What financial tracking system does our PTA use? While the financial reconciliation is in process, update the signature card at the bank to include only the signers for the current year. If you use online banking, make sure the password change is changed as well. If you are using a credit or debit card, make sure that those signers and cards are updated also. Upon completion of the financial reconciliation, you should receive the treasurer's records, including the checkbook from the Financial Reconciliation Committee. If the financial reconciliation has not been performed, do not take possession of the books. Contact the current president to let them know the financial reconciliation hasn't been completed and ask them to appoint a committee. Please review the Treasurer Resource Guide for more details on the information you will learn during this training and as needed throughout the year. You should be familiar with your PTA's bylaws, standing rules, and records retention policy as well. Your PTA should have a paper or electronic financial tracking system and funds request and deposit forms. Ensure your PTA's president has appointed a non-signer to review all PTA accounts monthly as required by the bylaws. This is also a requirement for embezzlement or bonding insurance. It's imperative that a membership-approved budget be in place at all times. Without a budget approved by the membership, the PTA Executive Board and PTA committee members are not authorized to collect money or spend PTA funds. The Budget and Finance Committee of the PTA has the responsibility for developing a PTA's budget. The treasurer serves as the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee. The committee members are appointed by the chair subject to the approval of the Executive Board, unless the PTA's standing rules designate who may serve on the committee. The Budget and Finance Committee studies the current year's budget versus actual report to determine how well that budget met the PTA's needs, considers requests for new programs or fundraisers, and reviews any plans of work submitted and approved. From these documents, a proposed budget for the next fiscal year is developed and presented by the treasurer at the annual meeting for adoption by the membership. It's understandable that not all PTA plans will be finalized this far in advance, so the budget need only include those income and expense items that have been planned at the time it is developed. The incoming treasurer can make amendments to the budget at the first membership meeting in the new year and as needed throughout the year. Now let's delve deeper into the process of developing the budget. When deciding how to budget PTA funds, the Budget and Finance Committee should always look to the purposes of PTA. If an action or expenditure cannot be tied to one of the 6 purposes, then it should be reconsidered for the PTA budget. According to the IRS, only an insubstantial amount of PTA money can be used for items that don't further a PTA purpose. Insubstantial is not defined by a dollar amount or percentage by the IRS, so PTA should be cautious of spending funds not related to the mission and purposes of PTA. The 6 purposes of PTA are to promote the welfare of children and youth in home, school, places of worship, and throughout the community, to raise the standards of home life, to advocate for laws that further the education, physical and mental health, welfare and safety of children and youth, to promote the collaboration and engagement of families and educators in the education of children and youth, to engage the public in united efforts to secure the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social well-being of all children and youth, and to advocate for fiscal responsibility regarding public tax dollars in public education funding. Here are some things to consider when working with the budget. Only the local portion of membership dues is listed as income. List the income and expenses of any fundraiser separately, not as a net number. List the beginning balance before the income items and the balance to carry forward after the expense items on your budget. The national and Texas portion of membership dues and any sales tax collected are not PTA money and therefore are not included in the budget. These items are recorded as liabilities in the PTA's records. In some financial tracking systems, this can also be called an escrow account. Membership must authorize all fundraising and expenses through approval of the budget or amendments to the budget. Budget line items need to clearly indicate the intent. The first 4 items listed are not detailed enough for members to know how the funds will be spent. The 5th bullet, petty cash, cannot be a budget item. If an event needs startup cash, a check is written to the chair responsible for that event and cashed by the chair. At the end of the event, the same amount of cash is redeposited using the same budget line. An example of getting startup cash would be the change needed for your PTA's book fair. A check is written to the chair for the startup cash needed. The treasurer would record the check amount as book fair expense, and when the cash is redeposited, that amount is also recorded as a deposit to book fair expense, resulting in no impact to the book fair expense line item. After the budget has been developed, it is usually presented by the treasurer to the PTA Executive Board for consideration and must be presented to the PTA membership for adoption. If a copy of the proposed budget is not provided to each member electronically or on paper, or if there is an objection to the proposed budget not being read, each line item on the budget must be read. Discussion is offered. A majority vote of the members present and voting is required for adoption. The adoption of the budget must be recorded in the minutes of the membership meeting. Please note that for any PTA business to occur, including the adoption of the budget, a quorum of members must be present. A quorum at an executive board meeting is a majority of the executive board members. For membership meetings, each PTA may select any number of 10 or higher members for quorum. The PTA's choice will be indicated in your bylaws. Here is an example proposed budget. The budget has a beginning balance, which is the cash balance forward from the previous year, the receipts or income planned for the year, and the detailed expenses planned for the year. The report ends with the balance to be carried forward to next year. This example can also be found in the Treasurer Resource Guide. Since the adopted budget is an estimate of the planned income and expenses for the year that was approved by membership in the previous year, amendments are likely to be necessary during the year. At a minimum, an adjustment to the estimated beginning balance will likely be necessary to reflect the actual beginning balance, which will result in an amendment to an income or expense line item or an adjustment to the cash balance forward. Other budget amendments that may be necessary are amendments to add items that are included in the plans of work that were submitted to the Executive Board and approved, amendments to bring fundraisers and other income to actuals, amendments to get approval to spend more than was originally approved for a budget line item. Each amendment is presented as it is currently budgeted and as the proposed amendment. For example, if you would like to increase the current reflections expense line by $50, you would propose increasing the reflections expense of $300 by $50 to $350. Remember, amendments to any line item will require an adjustment to another line item or to the carry-forward balance. Amendments require a 2/3 vote of the membership for approval. The budget may be amended at a regular membership meeting at any time during the year without prior notice of the proposed amendments. If a special meeting is called to amend the budget, then the appropriate notice would be required as per the bylaws. Now let's look at an example of how a budget might be amended for the true beginning cash balance forward. Remember, it was an estimate when the budget was originally approved at last year's annual meeting. And with the reflections expense budget increase of $50 that was just mentioned. Remember, these changes to the budget must be presented at a membership meeting and approved by membership. To start with, the entire budget should be presented, not just the items being amended. This allows the membership to see how the ending cash balance is impacted. In the example, the actual cash balance forward at the beginning of the year is $100 less than what was planned at the annual meeting. As a result, the budget amendment column shows a negative $100, and the amended budget shows $2,900. The Reflections Committee has asked for an additional $50, and no other committees are in need of additional funds, so the Reflections budget amendment is $50 for a total amended budget of $350. The ending cash balance forward is adjusted down by $150, the total of the $100 decrease in the beginning cash balance forward, and the additional reflections expense of $50, resulting in an amended ending cash balance forward of $2,600. In our second example, the PTA doesn't want to reduce their ending carry forward balance for the reflections expense, so they will need to find a way to raise $50 more and add that to an income budget line or decrease expenses in another budget line item. In this example, the PTA believes they can bring in more donations, so they have increased the donations budget line item by $50. As you can see at the bottom, the cash balance forward is only decreased by the decrease in the adjustment for the final ending cash balance at the beginning of the year. In this final example, the PTA doesn't want to reduce their ending carry forward balance for the reflections expense, and the treasurer realizes that the entire balance in hospitality will not be needed for the year, so they have decreased the hospitality expense budget line item by $50. As you can see at the bottom, the cash balance forward amount is $2,650, just like the previous budget amendment example. All PTA money should be promptly deposited in a PTA bank account. A deposit form and procedures protect the PTA and the individuals handling the money. At least 2 people should always count the money at the same time. The treasurer can be one of the counters unless your PTA's standing rules state differently. The money and signed PTA deposit form should be given to the treasurer for deposit. All parties who sign the deposit form should retain a copy or image of the signed form after all have signed. The treasurer should deposit the money the same day. If that is not possible, the PTA money can be temporarily stored in a safe or vault at the school, never in a member's home. Cash should never be taken from an event's collected money to use to pay expenses, reimburse individuals, or use as startup cash for a later event. Consider having procedures outlined in your standing rules around how to handle checks that are returned due to insufficient funds. PTA money cannot be mingled with other funds and must be kept in a PTA bank account. The money of another group or organization is never deposited into a PTA account. Any request to use a PTA bank account, even if it costs the PTA no money, is unacceptable and possibly illegal. The PTA's bylaws required that a non-signer review every PTA account on a monthly basis. The president appoints this individual. The non-signer reviews all PTA accounts and completes the form available on the Texas PTA website. The non-signer documents any transactions that meet the criteria on the non-signer review form that should be followed up on. The original form is given to the secretary, the non-signer keeps a copy, and a second copy is given to the treasurer along with the account statements. The secretary presents the report at the next executive board meeting. Any follow-up that is noted on the form is handled by the executive board. If the review raises significant questions, contact your counsel, field service representative, or Texas PTA for assistance. This is what the Texas PTA deposit form looks like. The form includes a place to note what budget category or categories the funds received should be recorded in. At least 2 individuals must count and sign the form, acknowledging the count is correct when cash is involved. Your PTA standing rules may require a third signer. This form can be found in the Treasurer Resource Guide and on the Texas PTA website. In addition to collecting cash and checks, your PTA may also decide to have an electronic payment collection system to be able to take cards in person or online for members to donate or purchase items. It is important that the membership approves any point of sale or online payment collection system prior to the use of a payment collection system. The portion of the Texas PTA e-commerce policy related to online and point-of-sale payment and collection systems must be adopted by the membership annually, or the e-commerce policy must be part of the PTA's standing rules. The payment collection system must be in the PTA's name and not the name of an officer or other member. When recording funds collected, the total amount is recorded as income, and fees deducted from the deposit to the PTA bank account are recorded as a separate expense. The same procedures for depositing funds need to be followed. If transfers are made daily to the PTA bank account, a weekly summary of those transfers can be done on one deposit form. Non-signer reviews must be performed monthly on any PTA payment collection system account. When considering a payment collection system, the PTA must ensure the e-commerce policy will be followed. Some options for payment collection systems and their limitations for PTA use can be found through a link in the Treasurer Resource Guide. Refer to the Texas PTA e-commerce policy for more information. In addition to collecting cash and checks, your PTA may also decide to have an electronic payment collection system to be able to take cards in person or online for members to donate or purchase items. It is important that the membership approves any point of sale or online payment collection system prior to the use of a payment collection system. The portion of the Texas PTA e-commerce policy related to online and point-of-sale payment and collection systems must be adopted by the membership annually, or the e-commerce policy must be part of the PTA's standing rules. The payment collection system must be in the PTA's name and not the name of an officer or other member. When recording funds collected, the total amount is recorded as income, and fees deducted from the deposit to the PTA bank account are recorded as a separate expense. The same procedures for depositing funds need to be followed. If transfers are made daily to the PTA bank account, a weekly summary of those transfers can be done on one deposit form. Non-signer reviews must be performed monthly on any PTA payment collection system account. When considering a payment collection system, the PTA must ensure the e-commerce policy will be followed. Some options for payment collection systems and their limitations for PTA use can be found through a link in the Treasurer Resource Guide. Refer to the Texas PTA e-commerce policy for more information. Depending on the types of insurance your PTA has, your PTA funds, property, and executive board can be protected from theft and lawsuits. Embezzlement or bond insurance covers losses your PTA has from theft, fraud, or embezzlement. In order for an embezzlement insurance claim to be paid, the PTA must be performing actions that help ensure it is protecting its money. These actions are the non-signer review previously discussed and the annual financial reconciliation we will discuss in a bit. Professional liability insurance covers the PTA and its officers if a lawsuit is filed claiming negligence. General liability insurance covers the PTA if the PTA is sued for injuries that occur at a PTA-sponsored event. Property insurance covers PTA-owned property and property in the PTA's care that is damaged or lost due to theft or natural hazards. Texas PTA's preferred provider, AIM Insurance, provides insurance for your PTA at a reduced rate with insurance starting as low $85 a year. At a minimum, embezzlement insurance, fidelity bonding, and directors and officers' professional liability are recommended. We encourage you to call an insurance provider, such as AIM, to discuss the amount of coverage that is right for your PTA. All funds raised by the PTA must be used to promote one of its 6 purposes, which were previously discussed in the budgeting section. PTA fundraising is for PTA projects only. PTAs do not fundraise for other organizations or individuals, no matter how worthy the cause. PTA should raise only those funds necessary to meet the needs of the year's programs and activities as outlined in the budget. If there is sufficient carryover from previous years, there may be no need to fundraise as much as in the past. Fundraisers must always be approved by the membership. Although fundraisers may initially be adopted in general terms, each specific type of fundraiser should be approved by the membership through either a budget amendment to clarify the fundraiser description or a separate vote. When planning fundraisers, remember, PTAs should consider the 3-to-1 guideline. For every fundraising activity, there should be at least 3 non-fundraising projects aimed at promoting one of the 6 purposes of PTA that were previously discussed in the budgeting section. Programs are varied. Many schools participate in the National PTA Reflections Program, recognizing student fine arts. PTA programs can be a kinder-parent first day of school breakfast, a bike rodeo, an incoming pre-K student story time, or a drug and alcohol awareness event. Keep in mind, this is a guideline. You may do 2 smaller fundraisers to support at least 3 programs. The key here is that the PTA exists to support parent education, family engagement, and advocacy. Schedule carefully. Look for conflicts. You don't want to be competing with other groups at school. Coordinate with the principal. Children must never be placed in a position of risk to further any fundraising project. PTAs should refrain from organizing and participating in any fundraising activity that may require a child to go door to door without adult supervision. The executive board should use caution when considering a PTA member's business for a fundraiser. At a minimum, Texas PTA recommends the PTA receive 2 additional bids for consideration in addition to the member's bid. More information can be found in the Confidentiality, Ethics, and Conflict of Interest Agreement. If you will be the executive board member handling fundraising, or you'd like more information about fundraising, please check out the Texas PTA Fundraising Resource Guide and training video. Donors often require PTAs to provide proof of their 501c3 status. They often request an IRS determination letter. Your PTA does not have its own IRS determination letter since you are under Texas PTA's umbrella exemption. But if your PTA is in good standing with Texas PTA, you can obtain Texas PTA's IRS determination letter and a letter of good standing stating that Texas PTA and its subordinate units in good standing, including your PTA, are exempt from federal income tax as a charitable and educational organization. To request these items, send an email to leaderengagement@txpta.org with your full PTA name, state ID number, and your name and position. The IRS requires organizations to provide tax acknowledgement letters to some donors. Those include monetary donations of more than $250, monetary donations of more than $75 when goods or services are provided to the donor as part of the donation. In the tax acknowledgement, the PTA must state the amount of the donation, a description of the goods or services provided, and a good faith estimate of its value. Donors may also request a tax acknowledgement for their records, especially if they have donated cash. Now let's talk about some do's and don'ts around spending PTA money. When making disbursements, ensure there are enough funds in a budget line before making the payment. If there are not enough funds remaining in a budget line, you may reimburse up to the budget and then wait for a budget amendment to be approved by the membership to reimburse the rest. This is why it is critical that your executive board members know what their budget is and keep track of what they have spent. All payments need a clear paper trail, so any request for funds must have a funds request form and the related invoice or receipts. No account signer should ever sign a blank check for an individual to fill in later. No matter how trustworthy the individual is, the check can still get lost or stolen. The same is true for a check made payable to cash. Checks should always be made payable to an individual or business. Never take cash from a PTA event to make purchases or reimburse someone. This does not allow for proper income recording for an event and is most often done at the last minute without a proper paper trail, including a funds request form. The payee cannot also be the check signer. This means that if you, as the treasurer, need reimbursement, the president or other authorized signer will need to sign a check payable to you. When getting ready for events that need startup cash, do not withdraw cash from the PTA's bank account either with a teller or an ATM, or get cash back from an event. If startup cash is needed, the chair of the event should complete a funds request form requesting startup cash. As treasurer, you should then issue the individual a check that the chair can then cash to have startup money. When making a deposit at the end of the event, the chair should note on the deposit form the amount of the deposit that is startup cash. A copy of the deposit form should be attached to the funds request form submitted. Here is an example PTA funds request form. Notice that all expenses must be associated with an existing budget category. When funds are requested, this form should be completed and receipts or invoices attached. Establish procedures with your members on how fund requests should be submitted, when they can expect payment, and how long they have to get those receipts turned in. This form can be found on Texas PTA's website and in the Treasurer Resource Guide. If a gift card is donated to subsidize PTA expenses, the gift card should be kept by the treasurer until it is ready to be used. Once needed, a funds request form should be completed, and then once the purchase is made, the receipts should be submitted to the treasurer. For example, if you receive a gift card from a grocery store is used to purchase breakfast for teachers, the receipt from that purchase should be attached to the PTA funds request form, noting that the card was used for a teacher breakfast, so that way it is clear that budgeted expense for teacher breakfasts will be less because of the gift card. If the donated gift card is put in a silent auction or given as a door prize, it does not require a receipt, just documentation on the form for its use. When purchasing gift cards to give away, remember that they must be retail specific, not generic cards that can be used anywhere. The value of the card should not exceed $25. Care should be taken when storing, using, and distributing gift cards. If your PTA would like to debit or credit card, there are requirements to obtain and use the card. First, the membership must approve the use of a debit or credit card prior to use. The credit and debit card portion of the Texas PTA e-commerce policy must be added to the PTA's standing rules or adopted annually, or added in order to use a debit or credit card. Cards are issued only to the authorized check signers of the PTA and are in the treasurer's possession. When an authorized signer needs their card, they check the card out by completing a funds request form. Once the purchase is complete, the signer returns the card, gives the receipts to the treasurer, and finalizes the funds request form. Unless an exception for paying sales tax has been approved by the board, if sales tax is paid on the purchase, the purchaser should reimburse the PTA for the sales tax paid. Funds cannot be raised through the PTA for an individual or family, no matter how worthy the cause. The IRS is very clear that a public charity may not give funds to individuals or families unless that is what the charity was organized to do. PTAs are not organized for that purpose, so PTAs may not give money, including gift cards, to individuals or families in the school community, regardless of need. Donations may be made to another nonprofit provided all of the following criteria are met. The PTA membership votes to donate. The group has 501c3 status, and the PTA has documentation to prove that. The group shares at least one common purpose with PTA. Donations to the school can occur if the membership approves the donation amount and its purpose. Funds are only given for a specific, designated purpose agreed to in writing between the PTA president and the appropriate school official. A school donation agreement example is available on the Texas PTA Treasurer page. How a PTA tracks their PTA finances is a decision of the treasurer in conjunction with the executive board. Some PTAs have budgeted funds to pay for the use of online financial tracking systems. Other PTAs have few transactions and prefer to use a spreadsheet program to track their finances. Texas PTA is partnered with myptez.com to provide a free membership and fee-based financial tracking tool for our PTAs. The paid product includes a web-based application with multiple user logins, customer support, training, and all the functionality you need to track your PTA finances. MyPTEZ costs between $99 and $219 per year, depending on your gross revenue. MyPTEZ offers a free 45-day trial period for new users of its financial tracking system. There are other programs and online systems available. As the treasurer, you work closely with the membership chair to correctly report and remit dues to Texas PTA digitally or by mail. Each funds request form from the membership chair requesting payment to Texas PTA should include a membership roster that agrees to the total requested on the form. As a reminder, the local portion of PTA dues should be a budgeted income line. The amount of a PTA's local dues can be found in your PTA's bylaws. The state and national portion of PTA dues should be recorded in a liability or escrow account, as this money does not belong to the local PTA. The state and national portion of PTA dues should be submitted to Texas PTA along with an associated membership roster as soon as possible after receipt, but not less than monthly. PTAs in Texas are also able to have their members use joinpta.org, a mobile-friendly website where anyone can join a PTA using a credit or debit card. When a member joins through Join PTA, he or she will be added to the local PTA's MyPTEZ account immediately. Payment for the local portion of dues collected through Join PTA is made once a month via ACH to the bank account provided to Texas PTA. Payment is within 7 business days of the month's end. If your PTA is not currently on Join PTA, visit txpta.org/joinpta. An up-to-date financial report is presented in writing and verbally at every regular executive board and membership meeting. The verbal report should include the periods covered, the starting balance for each period, total income and total expenses for the current period, year-to-date and the current budget, the change to sales tax liability, and state and national dues liability during the current period, year-to-date, and the ending balances, and the overall ending balance. The current period covered should be from meeting to meeting, not from the first of the month to the end of the month. The beginning balance for the reports presented at the first executive board and membership meeting of the year must match the financial reconciliation report ending balance. After the first meeting, the beginning balance should match the ending balance from the previous report. There is no excuse not to have a financial report. If you are going to miss a meeting, the report should be given to the president prior to the meeting so that the president can give the report. Not having a financial report is a red flag to the executive board and members that there could be mismanagement of PTA funds. Here's a financial report example. The report shows the current period actuals, year-to-date actuals, and adopted budget amount. Comparing the actual amounts received and spent to the budgeted amounts is important to showing fiscal accountability to your executive board and membership. In this example, the PTA also needs to amend the budget to update fundraisers and donations, as well as budgeted expenses that no longer will have any additional activity. The first items to amend are the school supplies and t-shirt fundraisers. The school supplies brought in $100 more than budgeted, and the t-shirts brought in $1,855 to date. The t-shirt chair expects a few additional sales, but believes the final amount of t-shirts sold will be closer to $2,100, so the t-shirt income amount is being reduced by $400. The expenses related to these 2 fundraisers are also being amended to the actual costs since no additional payments will be necessary. Additionally, a local business donated $100 of food to support student programs. This donation is called an in-kind donation and is listed on the financial report as income and expense when the item is received. The donation of $100 in food means that student programs can decrease their budget by $100. The student program's chair has also let the treasurer know that they have found a speaker for an upcoming program for free and do not need $100 of their budget. The combination of these two items means that the student program budget is being amended to be $200 less. Lastly, 3 PTA officers attended launch in July, and their expenses were $130 less than budgeted, so the leadership training line is being amended to actuals. These proposed amendments must be approved by the members at a membership meeting. Since the financial report must show all financial activity, it includes the changes in the sales tax liability, as well as the national and Texas dues liability. The report also includes the ending balance of the sales tax liability and the Texas and national dues liability accounts for the selected period to show how much the PTA still owes to others. If the PTA is only presenting a financial report and no amendments are necessary, the financial report is presented just for information, not approval, and it is filed for review by the Financial Reconciliation Committee. The report is attached to the meeting minutes. The annual financial report shows the actual income and expenses for the year compared to each budgeted amount. Per the bylaws, a preliminary annual financial report is given at the annual meeting. The information in the financial report that is already being presented should include all information needed for the preliminary annual financial report. A final annual financial report is completed by the treasurer immediately after the end of the fiscal year and provided to the Financial Reconciliation Committee. This report is presented by the incoming treasurer following the adoption of the Financial Reconciliation Report at the first membership meeting of the year. The final annual financial report is retained permanently with the Financial Reconciliation Report. It is important to protect your PTA's tax-exempt status. This status allows you to purchase items without paying sales tax, allows donors to donate to your PTA and deduct their donations on their taxes, and keeps you from having to pay federal income tax. A PTA is organized as a 501c3, meaning we are nonprofit, charitable, and educational. As a 501c3, income should be used for one of the PTA's purposes that we previously discussed. The PTA also has an annual 990 filing requirement that must be met. We give no individual benefit, meaning that members, especially executive board members, should not receive special benefits or opportunities from the PTA. PTA's lobbying activities can only be an insubstantial part of its overall activities, and they cannot support a specific candidate or political party. As mentioned previously, the IRS grants a PTA its nonprofit, tax-exempt status and assigns each PTA its own EIN. Your bylaws can provide this number. A PTA must file a Form 990 annually to maintain its 501c3 status. This is an informational return for a 501c3 organization. PTAs must file the Form 990 electronically. The president should be listed as the principal officer on the return. The IRS revokes the nonprofit, tax-exempt status of any organization failing to file a 990 for 3 consecutive years. If you receive a letter from the IRS, do not ignore it. Contact your counsel or field service representative if you need help. Texas PTA Standards of Continuing Affiliation require PTAs to annually electronically file and have accepted their 990 return with the IRS within 60 days of the fiscal year end. All PTAs are required to electronically file one of the following IRS 990 returns. 990N, very simple to complete. Gross receipts normally are $50,000 or less. 990EZ, gross receipts are less than $200,000 and total assets are less than $500,000. 990, gross receipts are greater than $200,000 or total assets are more than $500,000. If your PTA files a 990N, proof of the accepted filing should be provided to the end-of-year Financial Reconciliation Committee. If your PTA files a 990EZ or 990, a draft of the filing should be provided to the Financial Reconciliation Committee. The 990EZ or 990 should then be immediately filed by the outgoing treasurer following the financial reconciliation. Regardless of which type of 990 is filed, proof of filing should be presented at the first executive board meeting of the year. For more information on 990s, see the Treasurer Resource Guide. The treasurer should obtain a copy of the accepted confirmation after filing the PTA's 990N. This is shown on the left side of this slide. The right side of the screen shows the screen that the IRS website goes to after a filing is complete. It is an electronic notice summarizing the information the PTA has filed, but it does not show the filing was accepted. The IRS filing system takes approximately 7 minutes to accept a 990N filing. Log back into your account anytime after 7 minutes to access the accepted confirmation. Screenshot the confirmation of acceptance and provide it to the Financial Reconciliation Committee. If you pay an individual or an unincorporated business $600 or more for services, you are required to complete a 1099 NEC, non-employee compensation form, and a 1096 summary report. Both forms are due January 31st. Common PTA examples are a DJ, a magician, or an artist. The best way to determine whether a PTA needs to send a person or vendor a 1099 NEC for services is to have all individuals who provide services complete a W-9. The W-9 provides the PTA with the type of business the individual operates, as well as their tax ID number. If the vendor selects that they are an individual, sole proprietor, or partnership, they should be sent a 1099 NEC if they were paid over $600 during a calendar year. Now let's talk about sales tax. It's important to understand the requirements regarding paying sales tax and collecting sales tax as a PTA. PTAs are exempt from paying sales tax on items that are purchased for the purpose of operating the PTA business. Examples include the cost of financial tracking software, items needed for a PTA-sponsored STEM event, or snacks to give away at a Valentine's Day party. The PTA and its members making purchases should use Use Form 01339, Sales and Use Tax Resale Certificate Exemption Certificate, when making purchases on behalf of the PTA. The first page of the form, the Texas Sales and Use Tax Resale Certificate, is for items that you purchase and plan to resell for your PTA. For example, you would use this when purchasing t-shirts to sell. The second page of the form, Tax Exempt Certificate, is used when you are purchasing items to use for your PTA. There is no tax exempt number required for this form. The retailer will sometimes want a copy of the form, and other times will just want to see the form for confirmation you are purchasing for an exempt organization. Since PTAs do not need to pay sales tax on items purchased for PTA use, PTAs don't reimburse sales tax if a member makes purchases and pays the sales tax. However, there are sometimes cases where a specific store may not accept the tax exemption form. If your PTA chooses to reimburse sales tax in those situations, it should be detailed in the standing rules or voted on and recorded in the minutes of the executive board meeting. PTAs are required to collect and remit sales taxes on taxable items the PTA sells, such as t-shirts or school supplies, except during designated tax-free days. Now let's talk a little more about the designated tax-free days. 2 designated tax-free days, 24-hour periods, per calendar year can be approved and recorded in the minutes at either an executive board or membership meeting prior to the sale. A tax-free sale must not be a year-long activity, such as a school store. In just a minute, we will discuss what a determined seller means. The Texas Comptroller's Office has ruled that PTAs may consider advance order sales as one of their tax-free days, provided certain criteria are met. 1. The PTA must submit all orders to the supplier prior to the delivery of the merchandise. 2. All merchandise must be delivered to the PTA by the supplier on one day. 3. The merchandise must be delivered to the purchasers over a reasonable period of time. Texas PTA recommends this period of delivery not exceed 3 weeks. 4. The tax-free day is the day of delivery to the PTA or the day of delivery to the customer if the delivery occurs on one day and not over a multi-day event. The PTA may decide which of the 2 options they prefer. The most common example for PTAs is taking pre-orders for t-shirts. All pre-orders are considered part of the tax-free day, but any additional shirts purchased to sell after delivery are not part of the tax-free day. A PTA can participate in the Texas sales tax holiday, also known as tax-free weekend, and sell the items included in the sales tax holiday list on that weekend without needing to collect and remit sales tax. The list usually includes clothing and school supplies. This event does not count towards your 2 tax-free days. If a PTA sells taxable items at times other than the tax-free days previously discussed, a sales tax permit is required before the sales begin. PTAs must request a sales tax permit from the Texas Comptroller's Office. The Treasurer Resource Guide provides more details on requesting a sales tax permit. Once the PTA has its sales tax permit, the PTA is required to collect and remit sales tax to the State Comptroller if the PTA is considered the determined seller. If the PTA uses a company that has its own merchandise and that company sets the price of the items being sold, the PTA is not the determined seller. In that situation, the company is required to remit the sales tax, so the PTA does not need to use a tax-free day for these types of sales. If, however, the PTA purchases the product and sets the price, then the PTA is required to collect and remit sales tax unless it is being sold on a tax-free day. The return is based on the calendar year, not your fiscal year. So the outgoing treasurer should prepare a report of sales tax due January end of fiscal year for the incoming treasurer. Sales tax returns for most PTAs are filed annually. However, when the Comptroller's Office first sets up a PTA, it will be required to file quarterly until the PTA can show that it will be collecting less than $1,000 in sales tax each year. To avoid penalties, returns must be filed in a timely manner, even if no sales tax was collected for the reporting period. A PTA's sales tax permit should be displayed during sales. If sales tax is included in the price of an item, this should be clearly communicated via signage. More information on what commonly sold items are taxable and non-taxable can be found in the Treasurer Resource Guide. As was mentioned in the beginning, one of your duties as treasurer is to provide financial records to the Financial Reconciliation Committee. A financial reconciliation is required at the end of each year for insurance, but it is also a requirement based on your bylaws. Other times, a financial reconciliation must also be conducted per the bylaws, is when any authorized check signer is added or deleted on any bank account, and when requested in writing or verbally at a meeting by the President or 3 or more members. The President appoints the Financial Reconciliation Committee. The committee is composed of not less than 3 members. No one who is an authorized signer on any bank account may serve on the committee, nor can the current secretary or incoming treasurer. The committee can't be composed of a majority of student members. Individuals related by blood or marriage to or residing in the same household as the authorized signers or current secretary can't serve on the committee. The list of items that the treasurer and secretary should provide to the Financial Reconciliation Committee, as well as the checklist the committee should use to review the records and the report to be presented upon completion, can be found at txpta.org/financial reconciliation. During the financial reconciliation, the incoming treasurer coordinates the addition and removal of the authorized signers on all PTA accounts. Checks should only be written in an emergency by the incoming treasurer. Depending on the reason for the financial reconciliation, the committee is appointed in different ways, the timeline is different, and the report is presented differently. For the end-of-year financial reconciliation, the committee is appointed by the President at the annual meeting, and the financial reconciliation is conducted within 30 days of the PTA's fiscal end. For a financial reconciliation deemed necessary because of a change in check signers, or when requested by the President or 3 or more members, the committee should be appointed by the President within 10 days and needs to be conducted within 20 days of appointment. Immediately following a financial reconciliation, the books should be given to the current treasurer so that they can proceed with business. For the end-of-year or check signer addition-deletion financial reconciliation, following the conclusion of the financial reconciliation, the committee provides a copy of the financial reconciliation report to the treasurer. The committee then reviews the findings and recommendations noted on the report at the next executive board meeting. A member of the committee then presents the financial reconciliation report for adoption by a majority vote at the next regular membership meeting. For a financial reconciliation deemed necessary by the president or 3 or more members, following the conclusion of the financial reconciliation, a member of the committee presents their report for adoption by a majority vote at the next regular membership meeting. The secretary includes the report as an attachment to the meeting minutes and provides the current treasurer with a copy. Then, the committee reviews the findings and recommendations noted on the report at the next executive board meeting following the presentation of the report to the membership. It seems far off now, but you must complete some important tasks at the end of your term as treasurer. If you have a sales tax permit, prepare a sales tax report for taxable sales since the last sales tax return was filed to give to the incoming treasurer. If filing a 990N, file immediately after the PTA's year end and provide a copy of the confirmation of acceptance to the Financial Reconciliation Committee. If your PTA files a 990EZ or 990, complete a draft of the return to give to the committee. After the financial reconciliation is complete, you will then file the 990EZ or 990. Within 10 days of the end of the fiscal year, prepare all other records for the Financial Reconciliation Committee and deliver them to them for review. Make sure you are available to answer any questions they may have. During the financial reconciliation, assist the incoming treasurer with the update to the account signers if needed. Once the financial reconciliation is complete, your job is complete. Feel great about what you've helped the PTA accomplish, and know that your hard work and time have been greatly appreciated. Your council PTA and field service representative are excellent and convenient resources for you. Texas PTA's staff and volunteer leaders are here to answer any questions you may have about your position. Our toll-free number is 1-800-TALK-PTA, or you can email us directly. The Texas PTA Treasurer webpage contains many useful resources that are available to PTA members, including the Treasurer Resource Guide. You can reach the Texas PTA Finance Department at finance@txpta.org and the Texas PTA Treasurer at treasurer@xpta.org. National PTA's website, .pta.org, is another valuable resource. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope that this training has been beneficial and it will make your work in PTA easier and more enjoyable. If you have any questions in the future, please know that your field service representative and council leaders are always ready to help.